You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
Welcome back to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Need to move these bottles or cans out of the way here, but there's some things that a lot of people don't know about on their car. And if you don't know something about your car, this is the perfect opportunity to pick up the phone, dial 850-763-0555. My wife and I have been helping the do-it-yourselfer, people that just want to know a little bit more about cars for, well, we've been doing television now, and we've been doing radio, television, newspaper since 1990. I've been helping people get answers. We started doing that service in my life a few years ago.
The first thing you did was take articles for the local shopping paper.
Right.
You wrote articles in there, and people actually sent you questions over the internet.
Yes, they still do.
Yeah. And that was by email.
And they still do that. Matter of fact, if you have a car question, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to get on radio. They might recognize my voice. Some people are a little, television, they may get a little bit, antsy about people recognize their voice. So you can always write me at james@masterautotech.com. That's Master Autotech, TECH for the tech part, and you get to me, or just go to my website, James Auto Center, Panama City, just jamesautocenter.com, and you can click email James and questions, and we try to answer them.
But things are kind of moving towards Facebook now.
Yeah, they are. I will say that more people go to Facebook. A lot of people are getting into LinkedIn, and I don't do too much of that. I do more of Facebook, and that way I keep up with my daughters and my grandchildren and things like that. But it's pretty interesting how there's a lot of misinformation out there on the internet. A lot of people think that we'll give an example, RPM of a car. To me, that stands for revolutions per minute. Well, I was talking to someone the other day, and they thought RPM meant the speed of the tires. And I go, no, RPM means the revolutions of the engine, not the speed of the tires. That's, that the tachometer is your RPM, your speedometer is the speed of your tires. So they're two different things. So, but, that's the thing that, a lot of misinformation out there. People still to this very day think if you put a fully charged battery on a concrete floor, within 48 hours, it's going to be discharged. But that's an old wives' tale. Years ago, that might have been true when they had carbon-based cases that were made out of carbon for batteries back in the early 1900s.
I was going to say, we've had plastic cases on batteries for 50 years.
At least 50 years.
So that would be your great-grandfather's.
Probably, but we don't have, but that's an old wives' tale. Another thing out there, a lot of people say, well, I got to take my thermostat out. My car is running too hot. I need to take my thermostat out. Well, I've had people say, well, yeah, I did that. And whew, well, I sure saved my day. I looked at him and said, you did what? Well, I pulled the thermostat out. I said, well, the car running fine now? Oh, yeah, it's right there where it needs to be. And I'm sitting there going, well, you have a little time bomb. You just don't know it. That means your radiator is stopped up, and that thermostat was slowing things down enough to get it cool, and it's stopped up and it's hanging on you. So you better be replacing that radiator and replacing that thermostat. The easiest way to kill an engine, and I mean kill it, where you can't bring it back to life, you can't rebuild it, it's pretty well wore out, is running it too cool. If you run an engine too cool and not let it get up to operating temperature, which is over 200 degrees in most cases, it's going to wear out faster.
I was going to say, a lot of these people that are removing thermostats really don't understand why the thermostat's there and how it operates.
Well, how it operates is this. The purpose of a thermostat is to get the engine at operating temperature and keep it there. That's where it is.
So how does it do that? It closes.
Mm-hmm. It closes when it's...
And restricts coolant flow.
When an engine's not hot enough, it closes, allowing the coolant to stay inside the engine and warm up. And remember, today's cars, I'd say 99% of the cars out there have a 190-degree thermostat. Some 195, some 192, but 190-degree thermostat. Some 185, but I'd say the majority of cars out there are 190-degree thermostat or higher. So the car is supposed to operate at 195 degrees, and it takes about, I'd say usually about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how you drive a car, to get it up to operating temperature. And then in order to keep it there, to burn off and to evaporate all the moisture that's inside there. Think about it. I mean, we got cool nights and warm nights, whatever it is, and you get condensation. You get condensation on the outside of the car. Well, you're getting condensation inside the engine as well, because it's gone from very, very hot, now it's gone to cool, and you got condensation that forms, and that makes acid inside the oil. What were you going to say, babe?
Well, we were talking about the thermostat.
Right.
And
Well-
how it operates.
Well, that's what the purpose is. It keeps it there hot enough where it'll burn out, evaporate all this moisture that's inside there. But if you don't have a thermostat, it can't get hot enough to do its job. So you end up with this moisture building up, and making sludge. What happens is the moisture combines with the oil molecules. The oil molecules have trash inside them, like hydrochloric acid, hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid. I think Mark Sarlo, automotive engineer, said there's over 15 acids inside there. And once they mix with water, they get very, very caustic. Your oil doesn't break down. Your oil doesn't go bad, your base oil. What ends up happening is the additives in there get overloaded, and the additives are what the protection of your engine. Back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, when a car got 75,000 miles on it, it was ready for the salvage yard. You didn't drive a car much more than 75,000 miles. I think high mileage was considered 75,000 miles. But by the time the 90s rolled around, it was not uncommon for cars to have 200,000-300,000 miles on them, coming up for sale from their to their second owner. People would trade their cars in at 100,000 miles, saying, "Well, it must be wore out," but it still had a lot of life left in it. My Chevy truck, 1994 Chevy truck, I bought it with 75,000 miles on it. I knew the guy. I said, "Why are you selling it?" He says, "Got a lot of miles on it." I said, 75,000 miles? He says, "Yeah, that's a lot of miles." I said, "The car looks wonderful, so I take care of it, but I'm worried it's going to fall apart." Well, that was I bought it and it had 75,000 miles on it. Now it has 240,000 miles on it. Never been into the engine, never had to rebuild the rear end, I did have to rebuild the transmission. One of my employees years ago left a magnet out, and I was training him how to do oil change transmission services, and I apparently forgot to tell him about leaving that magnet in. This was a long time ago, and he left the magnet out. He didn't think it was important. Well, that magnet actually collects metal, little particles of metal inside there, and if you don't have it in there, things can go south in a hurry, and that's what ended up happening. So I learned that lesson the hard way. But cars last a long time. Motor oils don't wear out. Motor oils get overloaded. Now, transmission fluids, on the other hand, they do the friction modifiers and the anti-foaming agents. All those additives that are inside this special transmission fluid, which is nothing more than about a 10-weight oil, they become obsolete. They become used up. They evaporate out. They get like the little stars. Mark Sarlo, automotive engineer, compares the anti-foaming agents in there like little snowflakes that have sharp points on them that pop the little bubbles being made. And if you ever pull your transmission dipstick out and you see bubbles on it, and you go, "Wow, how come I got bubbles on this?" Well, if you check it when it's hot, you're going to see the fluid's really, really high if you got bubbles in it. And when you check it when the car is cool, just fired it up, and it's been running for less than 5 minutes, you'll see the level is where it's supposed to be. But as you drive the car, get it hotter and hotter and hotter, you'll see the level go up 1.5 inches, 2 inches higher than normal. And you go, how can that be? It's the bubbles are displacing volume inside there, and so they actually make the level of the fluid rise on you, and that can cause a lot of shifting problems. That can cause shuddering when you go into final gear. When you go, it's like running over rumble strips. Like if you're going up to Highway 231 coming to Highway 20, you've been driving down the highway for 10-15 minutes at 65 miles an hour, and these little rumble strips that say, "Hey, you're coming to an intersection and it's dangerous." Well, you'll feel this vibration when it goes into the final drive of overdrive, usually around 45-50 miles an hour, and that's from the friction modifiers that have been depleted in your transmission fluid. In a lot of cases, not all, but I would say in a majority of cases, that can be stopped by exchanging all the transmission fluid, not just 5 quarts of it, because most transmissions out there hold anywhere from, I'd say, 10 to 16 quarts on average.
So what is that vibration? Is that the clutches?
That's exactly what they're doing.
They're grabbing, not slipping.
Well, they're grabbing and slipping, grabbing and slipping. That's what they're doing.
Right. And if you let that go long enough, you will damage the transmission.
Right. What ends up happening is a lot of people say, when I feel that shudder, I just let off on the gas a little bit, and the problem goes away. And that's exactly what it does. It stops the slipping process, and it allows it to grab, and the shutter goes away. But it's a symptom. It's a sign that yours are problem developing, and you've let your transmission fluid stay in there too long. I've seen many cars that come in with beautiful looking transmission fluid. I mean, nice and pink and just nothing really wrong with it. But when I go for a ride, I feel that shutter. I had a lady from Apalachicola. She came all over from Apalachicola to see me, and the car had 45,000 miles on it when I first met her. And she says, I don't know what's wrong with my car. When I get about 45, 50 miles an hour, I have this terrible vibration that comes in. And she said it doesn't do it all the time, but it does it every time I come to Panama City. And I said, well, that means it's gotten pretty hot when it does this, because it's at operating temperature, because you've been driving for an hour and a half or so. So let's go for a ride. Well, we went for a ride, and after we got about 5 to 10 miles up 231, that's when I felt it. And I said, I know exactly what that is. She said, what is this? It's transmission shutter. Your torque converter is shuddering as the clutches are trying to be applied. They're slipping. And they're not, and you're getting this blah, 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 this really fast vibration, and that's because. And to fix that, let's try changing your transmission fluid first, and all of your fluid. This car held 12.5 quarts of transmission fluid in it total. We changed 14 quarts. We ran 14 quarts through it completely. Got all the old fluid out. Now, all the fluid looked wonderful. I mean, it did. It looked just like brand new fluid. And that's why she couldn't believe that I needed to change it. And I said, well, ma'am, the car's got 45,000 miles on it. The car is 10 years old. She said, well, yeah, it is 10 years old. I said, it's 10 years old. It's got the original fluid in it. Fluid is only good, on average, for 2 years or 30,000 miles. And that goes for transmission fluid, that goes for brake fluid, that goes for antifreeze, that goes for everything but your engine oil, which is good. Even with full synthetic, I tell them, don't push it more than 5,000 to 6,000 miles on your oil changes. But all your other fluids, such as transmission fluid, brake fluid, coolant, like I said, transfer case fluid, differential fluid, all those fluids really every 2 years, every 30,000 miles, change them. Fluid is so much cheaper than metal. It makes the cars last so much longer. So that's what I suggested we do to the car. We changed all the fluid, changed the filter, went for a ride. Matter of fact, we went all the way to Youngstown just to prove to her and back that this problem had gone away. And she was ecstatic, and she sent me all of her business since then. She said, I had no idea that fluid needed to be changed more often, even though my mechanic in Apalachicola said, man, there's nothing wrong with your fluid. It looks beautiful and pink. He was correct. It looked beautiful and pink. Nothing wrong, no bubbles in it, but the friction modifiers had evaporated out. They were gone. The additives that were added by the engineers when they were being made had depleted. They were no longer there. And if they continued to be driven like that, it would end up doing damage to the transmission to the point it would probably have been replaced. So if you have a car question, you're going to have to wait till tomorrow morning to give us a call at 850-763-0555. We do the show every morning right here on Fox 28 from 6 to 6:30, and you can get on live and get your questions answered. And I know it's 2016 out there, so start a new resolution this year, taking care of what you own. Take care of those vehicles out there. Make sure you keep them washed. Make sure you keep them waxed and vacuumed out. Believe it or not, a nice looking car lasts a lot longer, and people like to take care of things that look nice. And women love to have their headlights nice and bright and shiny. If your car is driving a car that's got dull headlights, bring it by James Auto Center and let us take care of those for you. Hey, this is James Morris along with Anna Marie Morris. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed.